Good evening. Great Memorial Day. The sun came out later on in the day. Kelly and I made stuffed hamburgers out on the deck. Stuffed them with cheddar cheese and mushrooms and onions and bacon. They were awesome. We didn't even realize that we were concocting a Memorial Day picnic while we were putting things together. We just had a great time. I hope you had a good day too. Hey, I want to talk to you tonight about some of the processes that we go through in our walk with Christ. I think there frequently we'll look at Scripture and think that things might be an event, and frequently they are processes. They are things that we have to keep doing. So I've got some hot chocolate here tonight. Probably be my days for hot chocolate would probably be somewhat limited as it gets warmer outside. I hope so. So get yourself something, and let's relax for just a few minutes here at the end of the day. And when you get back, I'd like you to turn to Ephesians chapter 6. Ephesians chapter 6. Now, Ephesians is all about our relationship with God, our relationship with Christ, and how those two relationships impact our personal relationships. You know, you go from the home to the family to out in the city, and it kind of ends up in chapter 6 with some recommendations on how we walk all this stuff out. So we're probably going to break we're going to be looking at verses 10 through 20, but we'll probably break this up into 2 or 3 different devotions. But I want to start out with verse 10 where it says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you might be able to stand your ground after you've done everything to stand." I just want to point out a couple of things here because I think this is one of those passages that is frequently misunderstood, maybe misapplied, because we hear about putting on the armor, I mean, if you want an in-depth look at putting on the armor, you can hear Laura Skelton's devotions. She does a great job with that, and certainly has an accurate take on this. But let me just explain a couple things so that we're all on the same page. It says, "Put on the full armor of God," twice in this passage, just in these verses that we're looking at here. And if you have to kind of get into the original Greek a little bit to understand exactly what's happening, but this "put on the full armor of God" is not a one-time event. It's something that you do and you keep on doing. So we don't suit up for battle. We put the armor on, and we pursue keeping the armor on, and the goal of this is to stand. Be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes, and therefore put on the full armor of God. We say it again in verse 13, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you've done everything, to stand. Now, that just in those verses right there would put on the full armor appears twice, and stand appears several times. And so the idea is not that we're putting on the armor so that we can wade into battle and attack the enemy, but to stand. So, and the idea is that we stand so that we don't fall. And the full armor of God is our protection. So I want you to keep this in mind as we go through this series, because this is typically called the spiritual warfare passage, and it's good enough. It is a passage about spiritual warfare, but I've seen it used time and time again as a means to trounce the enemy, a means to attack Satan, a means to fight the good fight, and so on and so forth. And this is actually a means of protection for us. After Paul has talked about our relationship with Christ, our relationship with God, how that all is interwoven in our relationship with each other. He's now saying, put on your protection so that those relationships don't get damaged. Put on the full armor of God so that you don't fall when temptation comes, when the enemy comes against you. So let's put on our armor, and we'll talk about what that armor is, and I think this may surprise you as well as we go forward tomorrow morning and then tomorrow night as well. So think about these things. See, what does it mean to put on the armor? And I'll give you a hint. It means to be like Christ. It means to be like Christ, which means that we have to know who Christ is, which means that I know you get tired of hearing this, but we have to read our Bibles. We have to know what they say. So consider these things as you go to sleep tonight. Consider how you may have put your armor on today, how you may have been like Christ today, and how you might do that tomorrow. I love you. I miss you. Have a great